Hey students, Mr. Passeri here, and unfortunately I am sick. The stomach bug is going around the old Passeri household, but I should be back tomorrow. I am feeling a little better, but not well enough to be in school. So because I've been gone 2 school days in a row, I thought it might be good to do a YouTube video to go over the answers to the assignment you guys did while I was gone. Then you guys can get down to some book it. And hopefully you all had a good Thanksgiving. We'll talk when I get back. And without further ado, why don't we check out North American explorers from Europe answers and the unfortunate starving time answers. And I will see you all soon. All right, students, let's go over our answers to this reading on North American explorers from Europe. So the reading starts out by talking about Martin Luther, who was the person who started the Protestant Reformation. And the key word with the Protestant Reformation is protest. People were protesting the authority of the Catholic Church due to the Catholic Church's corruption. So, number one, why did Martin Luther break away from the Catholic Church and start the Protestant Reformation? Well, if you had an answer that looked something like the church was corrupt and was practicing religion differently than what the Bible instructed, that would be a fine answer. The Catholic Church was doing things like telling people that if they gave the church money, their dead relatives would get into heaven more quickly, and all these other things that were just not in the Bible. And Martin Luther was like, yeah, I'm going to start my own version of Christianity to protest the corruption within the Catholic Church. What was the Columbian Exchange? That was when Asia, Europe, Africa, and the Americas exchanged their animals, food, accessories, money, and unintentionally diseases. Number three, countries sent explorers to find the Northwest Passage? England, France, and the Netherlands, aka the Dutch. Why were the French interested in North America? The French were mostly into fishing and fur trading. That was where they wanted to make their money, particularly the animal furs in America were very fashionable in France, so you could make a lot of money selling those. The French, out of all the groups that colonized America, were the most chill with the Native Americans. They were more into, I guess, doing business with the Native Americans and kind of having hybrid cultures with Native Americans and Catholicism than really totally dominating the natives, which is what groups like the English and later the Americans ended up doing. So the French were pretty chill with the natives, comparatively speaking. What started the Protestant Reformation and what was the result? Well, this was an answer from a student I had last year, and it's not a bad one. The old members of the Catholic Church started Protestant Reformation by spreading Martin Luther's teachings. Protestant kingdoms now challenged Catholic kingdoms. So that's accurate. Martin Luther was a priest who started the Protestant Reformation. His followers are the Christian group known as Lutherans. And now you had Protestant kingdoms like England and Germany now competing with Catholic kingdoms like Spain and France. Why did European nations compete for colonies in the Americas? To get more land, placing their kingdoms in a superior position, also using these territories for trading. Okay. So let's check out this reading here on the Jamestown starving time. This was a particularly brutal time in colonial America, and the starving time is not an expression. People were starving to death in catastrophic numbers, resulting in the Jamestown colony almost ceasing to exist, and there being really, really horrible things like cannibalism and just massive death. So let's talk a little bit about how and why this happened, because when we think of America, we think of prosperity. We don't usually think of starvation, but it is a part of our history. So let's check it out. What did Jamestown settlers do instead of securing food and shelter? They sawed trees and split boards. They did this to repay the Virginia Company. I'm looking at a student's work from last year who I thought was pretty good with their answers. So the settlers from Jamestown, their way to the New World was paid by the Virginia Company, which was a company that colonized America, is kind of a middleman for the British Crown. And what they would do is they would lend money to colonizers, and then the colonizers had to pay them back. And in order to pay them back, they cut down trees because lumber was profitable. And that sadly is not going to help you survive in the cold season, but it will pay back your debts to your Virginia Company masters. What helped settlers survive for the first 2 years in Jamestown? That would be the Powhatan Indians. And as per usual, the natives were quite good with growing food, knowing the environment, knowing how to survive, and helping white settlers as long as it did not detract from the safety and livelihood of the natives. If that happened and the white settlers were viewed as a threat, the natives would move to kill the white settlers. What happened in 1609 when 400 new settlers arrived? Well, unfortunately, a drought happened, and the white settlers now had many more mouths to feed. Why were the Powhatan Indians not helping settlers? The natives did not have enough food for themselves, and they were left with a very unfortunate situation where the Indians felt they had to take care of their own, and that meant that they had to isolate the British settlers so that the British settlers did not take food or land or anything away from the natives during this drought, because the natives were focused on making sure that their own survived, and what happened to the white people was not important compared to the natives, the Powhatan, surviving themselves. And on that topic, what were Powhatan Indians doing to settlers that left the Jamestown fort? The natives were making it impossible for the settlers to come out for food. If natives saw settlers outside of their fort, they would kill them. The natives were very much into trying to isolate the English and starve them out if need be, so that the natives could survive over the English. What effect did this have on the Jamestown settlement? Only 60 of the 500 settlers were left alive at the end of the winter, making the numbers for Jamestown, almost non-existent. And what happened after winter? How many were alive? 60 out of the 500, as we said. List 7 things Jamestown settlers ate to survive: rats, snakes, mice, horses, dogs, boiled leather, and human flesh. These are all things that people will eat in a famine to survive. Anything becomes edible when your survival is at stake, and this was not a good situation. Your answers will vary for number 9. What do you think of the settlers' decision to make money for the colony and relying on the Indians to help with food. You know, I will talk about what you think about this when I get back. I would say that hindsight is 2020, but it was not wise to rely on other people for help, because there will come a time when they can't help you, and then you're on your own, and if you don't have certain skills to survive, you won't. That was pretty much what was being talked about at our field trip to Lime Hollow. What do you think of the Indians' decision to deny the colonists food and force them to stay on the fort? Again, your answers will vary. Obviously, what the natives did made sense in terms of their own survival, but in my opinion, it was also cruel and inhumane. And you can't blame the settlers for, doing whatever they needed to do to survive. If the Indians were doing whatever they needed to do to survive, famine brings horrible situations where people have bad options, right? So the natives are like forcing the settlers to stay on this fort so they don't steal their food or hunt whatever food that there is or steal any resources from the natives. And the settlers are like, if we don't steal from the natives or get something, we got to fight to survive, or we're going to die. So famine, leads to bad options. And that's why it's always important in history to avoid situations where you have bad options. You always want to have good options available so that the bad ones end up not getting chosen. Especially, you don't want to be in a situation where a bad option is the best option. You know what I'm saying? So there's that. Okay, guys. So enjoy your Blooket. I will see you tomorrow. And take care. Mr. Passeri, out.